And I'm going to point to the image over there that I drew an interpretation of one of my photograms. And the photogram is basically a cameraless photographic process. There's no camera and there's no negative. So I actually place objects directly on the photo paper. And then I also place myself on the photo paper. And you end up getting a shadow, a white shadow of the object. And so it's a reverse. The interesting thing is when people look at the work, and the one in particular that was in the show this past year shows a mouth wide open with water swishing by, and it looks like it's going into the mouth as well. And some people interpret it as singing, because the mouth is open very wide, so there's like you're singing very loud. Some people see it as rage. And some people, I think because of the Art of Living Black being a group, a community of Black artists, people can see that there's something African related to it. And the piece is called Middle Passage. And Middle Passage is the area in the Atlantic Ocean, and it's that zone that the African slaves were transported across. And the image is a feeling that I wanted to create, whereby if I were one of the slaves and I jumped overboard and I was in the ocean, what would that feel like? And that's what the image actually depicts.
Do you remember the moment or time when you came up with that idea?
It's interesting. I do not, when I first started this work, I didn't want to have any preconceived ideas other than I want to find a way to document my heritage and culture. And that's also moved on to looking at who I am and who we all are and what we're made of. And when I went into the darkroom to make that piece, it wasn't even in my mind. There was a piece of handmade glass that an artist had left in the studio, and I started experimenting with it and realized that I could get the effect of raindrops. So I looked at that piece and I said, we're going to do something different today. And just by seeing that, I go into a place where I don't think about what the outcome is going to be. Because when you're doing a photogram, as I said, you're not working with a negative, so you don't know what you're going to get until you actually develop the image. So I proceeded to put the glass down, let the light shine through onto the paper, and then I laid down on top of the glass, and I wanted a sense of motion. So I pulled my hair back and made the exposure and printed it. And the hand, because the paper is small, it becomes a little difficult to express the full size of it because the pieces are human scale. And the hand is something that is often in my pieces as well. And it might be reaching up towards the sky, it might be reaching to catch the rain, swimming through the water. So it's just another part of the body that is used in a way for whatever purpose it needs to be used for in that particular image.
And the mask?
Well, that came out of my subconscious. Because I was thinking of African masks. I was thinking because there's, up in the corner, there is a ship, and it's like the Mayflower, it's an old ship, which brought the African slaves across. And actually, when I stopped and looked at the image again, it doesn't look quite African. It almost looks more like a sun god or something to me. And since it's above the water, it might be a symbol of hope. So that was definitely from subconscious.
Okay, then anything else you want to say about that art piece, the last piece you're talking about?
The Middle Passage piece?
Yeah. Is that what it's called?
It's called Middle Passage,
okay.
yeah. Well, I've done alternative images of Middle Passage, and in some of the pieces I actually use real water. And it's interesting how when you use real water versus a man-made object to have the perception of something real, that there's a slight difference. But when people, and I know it's different, but when people look at it, though, they still perceive them as water. But that's about it.
That's good.
It is an element of chance, and that's what I like about the process, because with a camera and film, you can go into the darkroom and you can manipulate it. With this process, I wanted something that was very immediate and very raw, and that went right to the heart of what the subject was. So if the image is not completely, if I don't feel it expresses something very clearly, then I will do it again. And the position of my head might be slightly different, the exposure might be slightly different, and I can get it to a place where I can say I'm finished with this piece. So it is by chance, and I like that. I like that aspect because it's not digital, so it's not manipulated in the computer, and with the process, since it's immediate, I can actually see right then and there what it looks like, and if I want to expand it or change it or add another element, I can do that right at that moment. Whereas when I use a camera out in the landscape, I can keep taking that photograph over and over again, but I won't know what it looks like until I get back into the darkroom and print it. So this does give me some results very immediately that I can keep working with. Well, my name is Ron Saunders, and this is my piece up here called Middle Passage 2. And it's a sepia tone photographic print, and it's from a series called Someday We'll All Be Free. And I started this series when I was faced with the issue of mortality, and basically in '98 my mother I knew she was going to be dying soon, and I wanted to do something a little different in terms of looking at myself as a photographer, an artist, and as a black person in this world. And I decided to not set up a studio with props and a camera. I wanted something very raw and immediate. And so what I started doing, it's a photogram. It's a process where you lay objects directly on the paper. So I've actually laid myself on the paper under the enlarger as my light source. And I use textures to give, or I should say materials to give texture. And Middle Passage refers to the Atlantic Ocean. The Middle Passage, the place between America and Africa. And in this piece, the mouth is open to catch this speed of water that's coming towards what I would perceive as one of the slaves who's in the ocean and experiencing what it's like to be in the ocean. And that's what this piece is about. And there's a show, I'm in a satellite show at the Federally Gallery, and that's in Vallejo. I also do this process with plant material, and that show is at Bonnie's Restaurant on Dwight in San Pablo.
Thank you, Ron. Which restaurant?
Bonnie's. Yeah, it's a Thai Asian restaurant.
On San Pablo.
On San Pablo and Dwight. It's right on. It's on Dwight, right next to Cafe Trias in Berkeley.
Oh, okay. That's there now.
Yeah.
Good.